I'm intensely aware that people who just read from the book can risk boring their audience absolutely rigid. So this first bit I'm going to read, I'll give a bit of an introduction. My father, as I said, came from Carmarthen. He was one of 2 boys. His father was one of 9, which I think was probably quite normal around about the turn of the last century. And he came from a small farm in Carmarthenshire in the village of Mydrim. I don't know if anyone's heard of Mydrim, but a tiny little village. As part of this book I went back to try and find a farm where these 9 siblings grew up. My grandfather was the only one who stayed in Wales for the whole of his life. All of the others went either to England or, in the case of the oldest, went to New South Wales. And so there's been a big diaspora. Obviously there wasn't breeding as well. So most people who are part of this family, and there are a lot of them, are either Australian or they're more English than me because their grandparents grew up outside Wales. So it was only my grandfather, sorry, their parents grew up outside Wales, whereas my father grew up in Wales. So obviously in writing this book I got very interested in this family and interested / obsessive. And we had, quite coincidentally, a family reunion, which happened incredibly rarely. But while I was writing this book, this reunion happened. So I'm going to read this section.
Is that the picture of all the people sitting on chairs?
That is, that large picture of everyone there. One summer's day, I'm summoned to a lunch party in Ascot, hosted by one of the grandsons of Corn Gather. Corn Gather, which means goat horn, is the name of the farm in Carmarthenshire. There are 70 of us, spanning 3 generations, descendants of 5 of the 9 siblings from Mydrim. 2 of the brothers did not have children. One line has died out, and the Australian diaspora couldn't make it. Bert's line, Bert was my grandfather, I'm proud to say, is the only one that produces a full house. 2 sons, 3 grandsons, plus other halves, 6 great-grandchildren. We are given name tags and a notice board with a family tree explains who everyone is. The photographs of the 9 and their wives from 1952 sit along the portrait taken in Carmarthen of Thomas and Eliza Rees in their Sunday best towards the end of the 19th century. I should explain that, as you will see when these pictures come round, Thomas and Eliza Rees are my great-grandparents who owned the farm. When their oldest son emigrated to Australia, the siblings didn't meet again for another 40 years with 9 of them, and when they did they had their picture taken with them, so that's what I'm referring to. I look around and see the faces of Corn Gather iterated across the generations, strong resemblances among the sons and daughters of the 9, genetically diluted until the great-grandchildren reveal little or no visible trace of their Welsh ancestry. Nor, in the next generation down, will many still bear the name of Thomas and Eliza's 52 great-great-grandchildren. 4 male Reeses seems a poor return. Thus does nature, which gave them 8 sons, correct itself. This is a revival of a tradition. When the Rees siblings were still alive, they used to meet every couple of years for large family gatherings at hotels in southern England. I remember large crowds of people to whom I knew I was related, but in whom as a child I had no interest. We kept ourselves to ourselves or talked to our grandmother and those Reeses we knew. The same rules of disengagement now apply to the large brood of begrudging children hauled here along motorways from all over England. Various boys play cricket in the baking heat. 3 smartly dressed young girls sit in a corner looking horribly bored, as do their parents. But most of us make an effort to work our way round the room. My part of the conversation is always the same. Yes, we're descended from Bert and Dorothy. I've got 2 brothers, and here are my 2 daughters. Girls, come and meet your 2nd/3rd cousins once/twice removed. In all this, Tylo, who is my uncle, who's the monk, is a phenomenon. The only person who has this family tree photocopied in his head. He could not be more in his element, making connections, tying up loops, telling people things they didn't know about their own grandparents. The gathering is an abiding testament to the 19th century Welsh belief in education and the social mobility it catalysed in the 20th century. There is much quiet wealth. The Reeses have carried on being farmers and doctors. And then, among the quirkier callings, we also have not only a monk, but also a pilot, a bus driver, a violinist, and a writer. The majority of the assembled will have benefited from private schooling, or still do, or will. One little girl is freshly sprung from the womb. We eat and drink as we sit and mingle, and eventually my father takes it upon himself to stand and thank our hosts for their great generosity in reviving this tradition. I telepathically urge him to mention the remarkable fact that we are all descendants of a small farm in the middle of Carmarthenshire, or at the very least give Wales a name check. The telepathy doesn't work. And maybe this is appropriate. Wales, for most of these people, is a ghostly memory, its DNA thinned out till it's all but imperceptible. After lunch, it's time for a group photograph. On such an occasion, I cannot let the opportunity pass to slip off to my car and change into the appropriate gear. As the party ambles across the lawn towards the large tree under which a long row of chairs have been laid out for the elders, I come back in the other direction, newly attired. Several people catch sight of me. "What the bloody hell are you wearing that for?" someone barks. "What in God's name do you call that garment?" parrots another. Forgive them, I think, for they know not what they say. England has marinated their brains in old assumptions. Amid the chorus of snipes and catcalls is an approving smile or two. Excellent choice, Jasper. "Dad!" Typical. As 70 descendants of Corn Gabber in Mydrim smile for the camera on this boiling English summer afternoon, I quietly hope my daughters standing just in front of me are proud that I, for one, am wearing the red shirt of Wales.